Beep beep, what is up ninjas? My name is Samworld and today class is in session. Today we're going to be discussing ways to make your non-groovy drops sound groovier. Now this video was inspired by one of my students that came over today. He showed me a couple of his new tracks and I was like, they're alright. They're not groovy at all. Some of my other students have also had this problem and I've given them similar tips that I'm going to be giving you guys today in order to get groovier style of drops. And as always guys, if you want to support the channel, support your boy, help me keep things going, you can go over to evilsounds.com, purchase a sound bank. In exchange, you're going to get obviously a sound bank with some sick sounds. And I'm currently working on a few guys, just to let you guys know. Tropical Pop Revolution with Edwin and also Festival Revolution Volume 2 for those of you guys that want that kind of kura sound, because that's what the pack is mainly focusing on.
We control everything you do.
Now this one's a bit hard, especially if you're coming from like some sort of genre from back in the day that you needed to be on beat. In this genre, you kind of don't always want to land on the beat. And I'm going to show you guys what I mean by this by showing you an example, of course. But what I mean by this is don't try and land on the one half, on the two, and then on the two half, like don 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 don. If you want to get a groovy drop, you're going to have to put a little bit more effort and kind of offset a bit. So let me show you guys a couple of examples that we can do where it sounds kind of not groovy and groovy. I mean that what you guys are doing is wrong. In fact, it might work for certain songs, but again, if you want to get a groovier drop, you do have to offset it a bit. So right now I have this drop here, guys. So I have this open and we're gonna make something for it. So the first one is the mistake one, the non-groovy one. It might sound good, like I'm gonna agree, it might sound decent, but if you want to get it groovier, I'm gonna show you guys. But the mistake I see a lot is that people try and be on beat all the time. So what I mean by that is they'll do something like this. The thing you want to do is you want to avoid landing on the beat. So for instance, I could land right here. I could land maybe right here. I could land right here. I could land right here. So it's up to you to decide. So notice how different that sounds. Look. Now look. So this is on beat, off beat. And now let's keep it. You know, and let's kind of do little shots here. And then again, try not to land on the beat. And then again, maybe on beat now. And again, you know, it's kind of doing a mixture. Try not to land on beat. If I land here. And again, try not to land on that beat. Trying to give a little bit of swing. And then maybe we'll do one here. And then, yeah, here we go. So notice how that sounds better than just. So with the swing, again, not landing on the. Notice how it sounds a bit off, but it still works. And that's the key thing with these guys is that you don't want to do it. And
Friends and yourself.
Tip number 2, guys, is to add legato to your bass line. This one is very simple. What you want to do is you want to go into your synthesizer of choice, find where you can set it to mono, and add a bit of glide or portamento, depending on what synth you're using. And then when you're working on your drop, you can kind of have many notes overlap, so you can kind of get like dun, dun, dun. And that little switch there can add so much. You're not going to hear the bass hit again, but you're going to hear that kind of glide, and it's going to get sidechained as well, so it's going to give you this nice little groove, as you're going to see here. Alright guys, so here we have this drop, which sounds like this. So now what we're going to do is just add these legatos here. We can make this one go up an octave or somewhere around here. It's up to you, and we can kind of just do that. Kind of swing. Notice how that switch. And then over here, we can choose to do it here, or we can choose to do it here. I'm going to choose to do it here and do a little bit there, and then maybe shorten this a bit. And let's just duplicate that. Let's see how this sounds like real quick. So you can see that legato gives it a lot, and it's just a very simple technique. Of course, have a good drop, but add those in there now and then if you feel like your song can use it for a little bit more of a groovier drop. Tip number 3, guys, which is not meant to be the magic pill, because if you have a shitty drop, it's still going to be a shitty drop even if you use this. But tip number 3 is to add swing to your drops. Now, in FL Studio, you're going to have access to that little knob you can turn to the right to give it a bit of swing. In Ableton, you're going to have access to the groove pulls, where you can kind of apply different groove pulls to different things and kind of combine to give your track a little bit of a swing. Now, again, if the track doesn't have swing to begin with, and if the notes are just so stagnant from the get-go, this might be a very hard one to implement. But give it a shot and see if it helps a tiny bit to get your drums to sound, or sorry, your bass to sound a little bit groovier. So in order to access the swing, guys, bottom left here, click on the groove pull. We're gonna go with swing, and then pick your favorite one. Fuck around with it, maybe 845. Let's see what it does. You can see it lengthens the notes and shifts them a bit. It messes it up here, so we can just fix that there and just move that a little. And then over here too, it kind of gives it a too much of a kind of shift. So you can kind of see that swing gives us that. We can also try, you know, just undoing what we just did. So here we can kind of try another one. Another easier one is 1635, because it's not so drastic. And again, it shifts it a bit. But it's a little bit of a change, but it does give a bit of swing there, and it's just a simple trick. Tip number 4, guys, is to embrace the dark side of big room and get the power of the triplet grid. Now, in order to access the triplet grid, guys, in Ableton, for example, you're gonna have to right click on the Ableton MIDI or the piano roll, and you're gonna have to go into triplet grid. Now, I suggest you use the 1/8 and the 1/16 to help guide you with the triplet grid so you don't get lost in it, because it is a vast darkness of space. And use it in conjunction with the normal grid to get this kind of hybrid, and it sounds a lot groovier. A lot of the new G-House, a lot of the new stuff like Castec and shit like that are gonna utilize the triplet grid a lot. And the key thing is to sound a bit off, like, oh, that guy's off.
DJ better turn it up, turn it up.
But it sounds kind of good. That is the key thing you want to aim for, guys. And it does take a little bit of trial and error, but once you get it down, I promise you, your bass lines will stop sounding stagnant, and you'll be able to actually dance to them and be like, holy shit, I'm a white man that can dance. All right, guys, so let's try and get some of those, you know, some of those hits here. So we're in the key of A. Why don't we do something very stagnant where it's just the beat, dun, dun, dun. And then we can go into triplet grid here by clicking. Use 1/8, 1/16. They're a lot easier to kind of grasp. Let's try 1/16 here and see if we can give it anything extra here. And then here you can kind of try these hits maybe and see if it works. So let's do it maybe shorter, so, and let's try here. And let's see, yeah, let's switch. And you can kind of see it starts to get a lot. You know, let's mess with the and you can kind of see we get that there. So now if we play this here and do. So that's how you would use the triplet grid, and it's very simple to use. Now it is difficult, guys, but again, stick to 1/16 and 1/8 because 132 is just too little, and 1/16 and 1/8 should guide you pretty good. If you follow these, I promise you guys will have no trouble using the triplet grid. And again, use a little bit of everything, stay in beat, and then stay off the triplet grid, on the triplet grid, to get a nice kind of groove to happen. You know, here, like, you know, we could kind of do. Notice how it has that kind of Melbourne bounce, kind of Mel Trans vibe, kind of Vinny Vici vibe, of course, because this is the grid that we use for Psyche. So, you know, embrace it and use it in your productions, guys. Made something like in a minute, as you can see there, sounded pretty decent. And with a lot more effort, with a lot more time put in, you can make something even better than I just did. But that's the power of the Triplet Grid, the dark side.
We work you to death and charge you for your coffee.
And finally, guys, the last tip I give you, and it's a simple one, and it's a tip I actually learned from Psytrance, and that is to play with the length of your notes. A lot of people tend to just make a drop and they leave the same MIDI notes the same length. And the key thing here, guys, is if your MIDI note is long, it's gonna sound like ba, but if it's short, it's gonna sound like ba. So play around with ba, 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 ba. To kind of get groovier drops, you know, and lengthen all the way the note, or maybe make them shorter. It's going to be up to you to decide, but the length of the note really does matter here because we are so used to not caring that much about it. But I promise you, if you worry about the length of the note, maybe little staccato hits here and there, you can get a very sick, very gnarly, very whatever the hell you say, cool in your language type of groove bass line. So here we have the last example. I couldn't get that good of a drop, but we're just going to still go with it. So here you have this sound here, and let's make this long here and check this. So a very stagnant beat, but we're going to use, again, shortening MIDI notes to get it to sound dope. So here this guy goes on too long. You can kind of shorten. Notice how, boom. Notice how it sounds groovier than just having. So you can kind of lower this down here, maybe add another one to add more groove. Let's try maybe. And then maybe here we can kind of shorten some as well. Let's see. And then if back to what we had. You can see that kind of helps a lot in adding grooves. Now this trick is very, it's a lot more useful when you do have like notes that are just fucking overlapping, in all honesty, like crazy. Because shortening it does help, and it kind of gets away that whole thing of like, but just to show you guys, the last thing here is the original drop of this song that I had was something like this. So here, if I would have had this beat be a lot longer here, like so, it wouldn't sound as groovy. So having these kind of be a little bit shorter, as you can see. So have fun with this trick, guys. Have fun with all the tips in this trick, in this video, and I hope that they helped you achieve groovier style of drop. And that's gonna be the end of the video today, guys. Thank you guys for joining me. As always, if you want to support the channel, evilsounds.com is there, guys. Leave comment suggestions down below on future tutorials, like always. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. My name is Sam Rold. Hopefully this video helps you get groovier bass drops, and you'll be able to dance to your music in no time. You guys take care, and you have an amazing day.